Book 5. The Structure of Shadanakar. Elementals. Chapter 2. Elementals of Light. I am weary of listing more and more new names and introducing more and more new planes. True, there are only a few left, for we are approaching the end of our survey of the structure of Shadanakar. But I would like to point out that I have not been introducing all these names for my own amusement or on a whim. No matter how strange they may sound now, and no matter how much they may seem empty figments of the imagination to the overwhelming majority of people, a time will come when every high school student will know these names as surely as they now know the names of the republics of Central America or the provinces of China. Had I thought differently, I would never have presumed to draw the reader's attention to these names. What is the point of compiling a geography or geology of some planet in the Aldebaran system if no one will ever go there? And if even our descendants only see it as a faint star in the sky? What need is there for such intellectual exercises? But a handful of people now need the metageography of Shadanakar. Soon hundreds will, and someday, no doubt, millions will discover a need for it. After all, some 200 years ago, in the age of Madame Prostakova, only a handful of people had any use for ordinary geography. How glad I am that our descent into the demonic worlds is at an end, and that we can now look forward to planes of beautiful beings who are undoubtedly well disposed toward humanity. But it is always a great deal more difficult to describe things of light, especially things of other worlds, than that which is dark or monstrous. I am afraid that I, too, will suffer the fate of the majority of writers, finding graphic words for dark and woeful images, yet suffering from writer's block when faced with brilliant radiance. Radiant and shining indeed are the monads of elementals of light in lofty flauros, as they send out their shelts like rays to the zatomis, where they wrap their souls in astral coatings. The souls remain there in the intervals between incarnations. When incarnating in the worlds of elementals of light, they in turn wrap themselves in the materiality of ether, a denser substance. It is those worlds that will be described in the present chapter. None of the elementals of light, with the exception of the elementals of Arashamph, engage in procreation, just as they do not experience incarnation in Enroth. Each independently coats itself in the matter of the four-dimensional worlds. Such is incarnation without procreation. After a chain of incarnations, every elemental, instead of the death we are accustomed to, undergoes a transfiguration that takes it to fire and Usnorm. They perceive Enroth, and particularly humans, through touch and another sense that we do not possess. They are not indifferent, of course, to humans. Our own attitude toward nature determines their attitude toward each of us. As mentioned earlier, the natural elements in Enroth are best understood as the outermost concentric circle of their habitat. It seems that only music and poetry have thus far succeeded in conveying the interconnection between elementals and the natural elements. Their wondrous life of frolic, games, love, and joy. One need only recall Wagner's brilliant score, the so-called rustling forest, where it is no longer the case that the wind speeds over a sea of trees and blooming meadows, but through the wind, the elementals themselves kiss each other and the beautiful earth. German fairy tales about elves are not fairy tales at all. There really is a plane of kindly, endearing little beings that resemble elves. It could be called just that, the land of the elves, the uppermost thin layer of earth, where roots and seeds nestle, has a corresponding plane in the transphysical world. The wondrous land of Daraina, the land of good spirits that care for roots and seeds. It might seem like a fairyland to us, The seeds and roots glimmer in the softest tones of blue, silver, and green, and a living aura glows softly around each seed. The inhabitants of Daraina are tiny beings that look like white caps, and on top of each is another, smaller cap, like a head. They have a pair of gentle yet dexterous limbs, a cross between arms and wings. They quietly glide through the air, rustling the folds of their caps, which is their means of communication with each other, and weaving spells over the seeds and roots, like fairy godmothers do over cradles. Those mysterious processes by which a great tree in all its complexity grows from a tiny seed are known to them. If not for their help, the dark powers would long ago have gained access to those cradles and turned the Earth's surface into an impenetrable jungle of nightmarish plants, vampirish and gruesome counterparts to our vegetation. If one descends deeper into the soil of Daraina, one will sooner or later reach Ron or Kataram. A plain by the name of Murohama corresponds to the lower-lying vegetation of forests, moss, grasses, bushes, everything we call underbrush. The abode of elementals of trees is called Arashamph. They are not dryads. There might well be beings like those the ancient Greeks called dryads, but I have no knowledge of them. The elementals of Murohama and Arashamph do not bear the slightest resemblance to humans or to any being on our plane. The souls of individual trees dwell in the Zatumis, where they possess intelligence and are beautiful and wise. The Synclite members interact with them to the fullest degree. They engage in a mutual exchange of ideas, feelings, and experiences. But in Arashamph, the elementals coat themselves in ether bodies and sink into a reverie. The trees of Enraf are their physical bodies. Every elemental of Arashamph has gone through a large number of incarnations. For many of them, the number of years lived in Enraf is in the 6 digits, sometimes almost 1,000,000 years. The landscape in Arashamph resembles greenish tongues of fragrant, cool, gently swaying flames. Some of these elementals are full of goodness, like saints, and favorably disposed toward us. They are patient, serene, and humble in their wisdom. At times, something breathtaking takes place among them. They all bow down to each other in the same direction. The entire ether forest turns into a mass of flames that gently bend and straighten, flowing into each other. And in chorus, they offer up something like hymns of praise. The plain of Murohama sometimes takes part in it too. Murohama is the same greenish color, but thicker, darker, warmer, and gentler. Everyone should find it easy to recall soft breezes kissing the earth during summer sunsets or a spring afternoon. They kiss the earth and its grasses, fields of grain, paths, trees, the surface of rivers and oceans, people and animals. The elementals of the plain called Vayita take delight in life. They take delight in us and in plants, water, and the sun. They take delight in cool, hot, soft, hard, bright, or shadowy ground, stroking and caressing it. If we could see Vayita with our own eyes, we would have the impression of being immersed in verdant, fragrant, playful waves that are completely transparent, pleasantly warm, and most importantly, alive, intelligent, and bubbling with delight over us. When you plunge face first on a hot day into the grass of a meadow in bloom, and your head spins from the smell of pollen and from the aroma coming from the warm ground and leaves. At the same time, barely audible breaths of light and warmth glide over the meadow. You can be sure that it is the elementals of Vayita playing and celebrating with the children of Faltora, the land of elementals of field and meadow. We are left without a single clouded thought in our mind. it might seem to us that we have found paradise lost. The dust of worldly cares is blown from our souls by clean breaths of wind, and we are incapable of feeling anything but an all-consuming love for nature. A world of truly inexpressible delight shines through the streaming water of the earth's rivers. There exists a special hierarchy that I have long been accustomed to calling river spirits, though I now see that the name is imprecise. Each river has a single, unique spirit. The outermost layer of its ever-flowing body is visible to us as the currents of a river, but its real soul is in heavenly Russia, or another heavenly land if it flows through the territory of another culture in Enroth. But the inner ether layer of its body, which its essence permeates incomparably more fully and in which it is embodied with almost full consciousness, is located in a world adjoining ours called Liurna. The fact that it is continuously surrendering the currents of both its flowing bodies to a larger river, and that river to the sea, but doing so without any diminishment in its body as it flows on from source to mouth, constitutes the greatest joy of its life. It is impossible to find words to describe the charm of those beings so joyful, playful, sweet, pure, and peaceful, that no human tenderness is comparable to theirs, except perhaps the tenderness of the most giving and loving daughters of humanity. And if we are fortunate enough to experience Liurna in body and soul, by immersing our body in a river stream, our ether body in the streams of Liurna, and our soul in its soul, which shines in the Zatamis, then we will climb out onto the bank with a cleansed, brightened, and joyful heart, such as humans might have had before the fall. Vlanmirn, the land of elementals of the upper regions of the sea, partly resembles Liurna in the effect it has on the human soul. The landscape of that world resembles a rhythmically rolling ocean of bright blue. Such a softly radiant, ravishing blue does not exist in Enroth. Its waves capped not by foam, but by milky white. Lacy spheres that look like large flowers. These flowers bloom and melt before one's eyes, and then bloom and melt anew. The elementals of Liurna are feminine, and those of Vlanmim are masculine. But that has no relation whatsoever to procreation. However, the union of river with sea is an expression of the love between the elementals of these two worlds. Vlanmim can also make us wiser and purer in heart. But because it is open from below to the influence of the grim elementals of Nugurt, the ocean depths, it is not as gentle as Liurna. Its influence is noticeable on the moral fiber and even the physical appearance of people fishermen and, in part, sailors who come into daily contact with it, even if that contact takes place on a level beyond their consciousness. On sailors, however, the mark of other elementals, ones not of light, is all too apparent. Sailors are influenced by, on the one hand, the inhabitants of Nugurt, and on the other, the Nebrusks and the inhabitants of Dugr, the elementals of large port cities. As for fishermen, they receive from Vlanmim the traits that set them apart from other people. The combination of purity, courage, and a crude, slightly brutal strength, with childlike integrity. Everywhere, over land and sea, stretches Zungaf, the land of elementals of atmospheric moisture, which produce clouds, rain, dew, and mists. There is no clear boundary between Zunguf and Irudrana, the land of elementals whose activity in Enroth takes the form of thunderstorms and sometimes hurricanes. Both these planes blend with each other, just as their inhabitants do. That same transmyth is revealed, a glimmering in the mythologies of ancient peoples, giving rise in their creative imagination to the titanic images of the thunder gods. Indra, Perun, Thor, If only the ancients, who ascribed, as with everything, human features to these images, had known how infinitely distant these beings are, from even the slightest resemblance to humans. When rain showers down to the ground, and the tempestuous and frolicsome children of Zunguf give themselves up to rejoicing, bouncing from the earth and the surface of water back up into the air, which seethes with drops of water. Above, in Irudrana, armies of beings like Thor or Indra, only in their playful competitiveness battle away. For them, thunder and lightning are creative work, and hurricanes are life at its fullest. If a light snow floats down on a cool night, or trees and buildings are whitened by frost, the robust, clear, almost ecstatic joy we feel testifies to the proximity of the wondrous elementals of Navenna. White expanses immaculate with a special, inexpressible purity that is Navenna, the land of elementals of frost, snowflakes, and fresh snowfalls. Frolicking in unearthly fun like that of the elves, they cover their beloved earth with their veil. Why are we filled with such joy for life when myriads of silent white stars softly descend all around us? And why, when we see a wood or city park white with frost, do we experience a feeling that unites solemnity and lightness of heart, a rush of energy and delight, veneration and childlike joy? The elementals of Navenna have a particularly tender love for those of us who have kept the eternal child alive in our heart. They greet such people with gladness and try to play with them. Even the excitement, youthful vigor, and rush of blood in the veins of children during snowball fights or tobogganing gives them pleasure. Beside Navenna is stern and somber Ahash, the plane of Arctic and Antarctic elementals, which are connected to the polar regions of our planet. Ahash extends into outer space, and the Milky Way is visible from it. The borders of both polar regions creep toward and away from the tropics as the seasons change. The untamed spirit of those beings, with their penchant for jumping from crystal-clear meditation to fury, with their sudden urges to build whole worlds of transphysical ice, with their love of gazing eye to eye into the endless depths of the metagalaxy, has left a striking mark on the physical environment of the polar basins. When the revolution of the Earth around the Sun brings winter to the northern hemisphere and gives the elementals of Ahash access to the more populated parts of those continents, they come pouring in with physical masses of Arctic air and train, battling with snowstorms and blizzards over field and forest, giving free rein to their joy from the heights of anticyclones. They do not perceive Enroth in the same way we do, nor do they perceive humans with the faculty of sight. But some among them are as predatory and as cold emotionally as Andersen's Snow Queen, and they represent a danger to humans. There are others that intuit the inner spirit of those of us who are akin to them in courage, daring, and fearlessness. They can love such people with a strange love incommensurate with ours. They cradle them on their snowy laps, open the way to the depths of their lands, guide them through the terrible majesty of the physical layers of their realm, and, forgetting the incommensurability between their immensity and our physical smallness, are prepared to wrap them in a blanket of white to the lullabies of howling blizzards. The last two planes also extend, like Ahash, into outer space. Diram, which is connected to the stratospheric ocean of air and the belt of lower temperatures, and Siana, the world visible to inner vision through the high-temperature zones that encompass our planet in the upper atmosphere. But the elementals that abide there are so immense and so alien to our way of thinking that it is extremely difficult to gain an understanding of their essence. They are elementals of light, but their light is a searing, perilous light. Only a human soul that has already risen to exceptional heights can gain admittance to their realm. That concludes the sakwala of lesser elementals. They are, of course, lesser not in comparison with humans. Many of them are far mightier than any individual human, but rather in comparison with the elementals of another sakwala, with the ascending staircase of greater elementals, the true planetary divinities, the sovereigns of our world. The lesser elementals tremble with joy at their breath. The majority of them are beautiful, supremely good beings of inexpressible majesty. But it is nearly impossible to speak of the landscapes of those plains and of the forms of those great beings, for they all exist simultaneously at a multitude of points on their plains. The dominion of Vayam, the Lord of blessed wings, the embodied spirit of the air, stretches from the upper reaches of the atmosphere down to the deepest chasms. His brother, Ea, if I remember correctly, his other name is Vlarol, the Lord of life-giving waters, was worshipped long ago by the Greeks as Poseidon and by the Romans as Neptune. But the Babylonians grasped his grace and cosmic dimensions best of all, dedicating a magnificent cult to the guardian and keeper of the earth's waters. Both spirits are on eternal guard over the sources of life all over the world, not only in Enroth, but in many other sakwalas as well. Both are as old as water and air, and just as immaculate. Povarn, the third brother, the Lord of Flaming Body, is even older, for there is a profound reality behind the ancients' belief in Pluto and Yama. That terrifying lord of the subterranean magma is not the servant of Gogtungur. He will, however, be the last, it seems, of the greater elementals to undergo transformation, which occurs at the end of the second eon. There's also a fourth great brother, the youngest, Zaranda, the lord of the animal world. The tragic history of the animal realm in Enroth has left a deep, truly global mark of sorrow on his form. And no matter how historians try to explain the symbolism behind the Egyptian Sphinx, meta-history will always regard it as an image of the one who combines in himself the nature of the great animal with wisdom far beyond the reach of human beings. There are 7 greater elementals in all. 2 divine sisters divide the remaining spheres of power between themselves. Estira, the queen of eternal gardens, the mistress of the plant realms of Shadanakar, and Lilith, the Aphrodite Universalis of humanity. Lilith plays an immense role in our lives. Like all the greater elementals, her abode is incommensurate with any of our forms and is indescribable, while her own form is boundless. Her variomaterial body exists simultaneously at a multitude of points on her plane, and only in rare instances does it assume a form that can be seen by human spiritual vision. I do not know the mechanics of the process, but I do know that the formation of any body in the worlds of dense materiality is impossible without the involvement of Lilith, with the exception of animals whose species are forged by Zaranda. In all the other realms, it is Lilith that discharges that duty. She forges the family chain for humanity, and demons, and for Rarugs, Igvas, and the inhabitants of Dugur in the demonic worlds. Every densely material body created with her assistance in the dark worlds is made of Karok. That is why she is fully deserving of being considered the sculptress of our flesh. Human sexuality is inextricably bound with her being and influence. Whether it is she or her Colossus, that power always presides over every act of human copulation. And while the embryo is in the womb, she is there. At one time, long, long ago, that elemental became the spouse of the prime angel, that great spirit that subsequently became the Logos of Shadanakar. Their union took place during the creation of the angelic planes, and Lilith became the proto-mother of that first humankind. But Gag-Tungur was able to infiltrate Lilith's world, and her body of subtle materiality absorbed a demonic element. This was a disaster of catastrophic proportions. From that time on, all family chains forged by her, be they Titan, demon, or human, acquire something of that element. There is a term in Jewish mysticism, Yetzer, that refers to the demon seed in humans. We will try using it in reference to that cursed seed planted in humans through Lilith, who carries it within herself and in her carosses to this day. Only Lilith has a monad and complete consciousness. The carosses, her localized manifestations, notwithstanding their power and longevity, possess only the equivalent of consciousness and lack a monad, including the Dingra of Russia. Incidentally, we are indebted to those sculptresses of the human flesh for the visible, at times almost elusive, physical resemblance that distinguishes the members of a common nation or kinship group. It is known that the cult of the goddess of love on ancient Cyprus eventually split into two diametrically opposed sects. The lofty cult of Aphrodite Urania, the goddess of spiritual, creative, poeticized, and poetic love, and the cult of Aphrodite Pandemos, the common Aphrodite. The latter cult gained widespread appeal among the lower classes, taking the form of orgiastic rites and the blessing of sexual excesses as a holy offering to the goddess. Some other cultures have experienced analogous processes of bifurcation and polarization of previously unified principles. There are even more cultures where the historian is presented with a later phase. Cults of sexual perversion and the random blend of demonic and elemental properties behind the false mask of the divine. Ritual prostitution in Canaan, Babylon, India, and other countries is a phenomenon of that nature. The Karassas of nations or supra-peoples presided over such institutions, and they preside over the rites of orgiastic sects and mass fornication even now. It is also clear that such phenomena require the involvement of the lunar demoness and the dark powers of Duggar. But when, in battling those who threaten his people with physical destruction, a demiurge seeks a way to create a powerful and combative champion, he is forced to descend to the Karassa of the people and unite with her. The cursed Yetzer unavoidably infects their joint offspring, and the poisoned body of the Karassa produces a two-faced monster. That is the origin of the firstborn of every line of Vitzraor. It will only be possible, it appears, to rid the Karossus and Lilith herself of the Yetzer in the second eon. The first and last of the greater elementals, Earth, is the mother of all the others, and not only of them, but of every living thing in Shadanakar. Every elemental, every animal, human, demon, angel, demon, and even every great hierarchy. An inexhaustible wellspring, she is the one who creates the ether body of all beings and takes part, along with the individual monads, in the creation of their astral bodies. She is endowed with warm, inexhaustible love for everything, even demons. She grieves for them, but forgives them. Everyone, even angels of darkness and the monsters of Gash Sharava, call her mother. She loves all and everything, but she reveres only the highest hierarchies of Shadanakar, especially Christ. She is fertilized by the great radiant spirit of the sun, both in Enneroth and in her own indescribable world. She perceives people and their inner world. She hears and responds to the call of our heart, and she answers through love and nature. May her name be blessed. Prayer can and should be offered up to her in great humility. May the beautiful moon, the daughter of earth and sun, be blessed, and may the sun be thrice blessed. All of us, our future body and soul, together with all of Shadanakar, at one time abided in its immaculate heart. Great God of light, they sang your glory in the temples of Egypt and ancient Greece, on the banks of the Ganges and on top of the ziggurats of in the land of the rising sun and in the far west on the Andean plateaus. We all love you, good and bad, wise and ignorant, believers and non-believers, those who feel the infinite goodness of your heart, and those who simply enjoy your light and warmth. Your brilliant elite has already created a staircase of radiant plains in Shadanakar, and cascades of spiritual grace pour down it, lower and lower, into the angelic worlds, the worlds of the elementals, and the worlds of humanity. Beautiful spirit, the origin and sire of all living matter, the visible image and likeness of the universal sun, the living icon of the one God, allow me too to join my voice, audible to you alone, to the global chorus of your praise. Love us, O Radiant One. Thank you for listening. Why not to subscribe for more?